Thank you all for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview on the Feed NJ program. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we are able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on our NJ, EDA, and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now, to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Chief Economic Security Officer, Tara Colton. Tara?
Thanks so much, Jasmine, and thank you to everyone who's here today. I know folks are still trickling in. We have a very full presentation to get through, so with that spirit, I'm just going to jump right in. Just wanted to reiterate what Jasmine said. There will be a recording of this webinar, a copy of the slides, all posted online. So if you missed something or didn't get all the details that we went through, don't worry, this will all be available online. So we're going to spend a few minutes at the beginning just providing some context about the Feed NJ program, and then going to get into much more detail about the program itself and then the actual application, which is something that we want to make sure people have information about so that you can start to prepare what you need to begin to apply. Next slide, please. So I'm thrilled to be here today. I'm part of an amazing team at EDA focused on food security. One of the themes I think you'll be hearing about is the fact that economic development is food security, and the state's economic development agency has a team dedicated to food security and food desert relief. Really speaks volumes to our commitment to this issue. I'm going to be tag teaming today with Rucha Gadri, who's our Director of Food Security, but also want to thank and acknowledge our other amazing team members, Riley Edwards, Brian Todd, and Ty Blitzstein, who have been collaboratively developing this program and really helping move this work forward. Next slide. So for those of you who are logging on, some of you may not be at all familiar with the EDA. So the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, we are a state agency under the leadership of Governor Phil Murphy, focused on driving economic growth. And again, I think the notion of building a New Jersey that is stronger and fairer and puts economic security front and center, there is a little more central to economic security than food security and food access. But I think it's quite worth noting that this is not a space that the Economic Development Authority has traditionally done work in. And we're really proud that over the last several years, this has been a growing area of focus for the EDA. So if you're very familiar with us, nice to see you again. If you've never heard of us until today, no problem. And that's part of why we're spending today trying to explain some of the requirements and processes that come with funding through the EDA. Next slide, please. So again, the EDA is historically focused on supporting businesses, different types of organizations, and we have a number of initiatives and tools that we use to provide that support, whether it's tax credits, loans, grants, and other kinds of financial resources. But what we're going to be focusing on today is the FEED program, which is a grant-based program, meaning the money we give you does not need to be paid back. No investments are made on it. It is just resources provided to organizations to improve their communities. Next slide. So just wanted to give a little context. Some of you, this may be very familiar. For some people, this may be new, but again, just sort of the evolution of EDA's work in food security. So I want to thank and acknowledge the leadership of Governor Murphy and Speaker Craig Coughlin, who has been a tireless champion of addressing food insecurity and alleviating food deserts. So several years ago, Governor Murphy and Speaker Coughlin worked together to develop the Food Desert Relief Act, which was signed into law, and among other things, charged the EDA with developing a suite of tools to improve food access and food security. and also to designate the state's food desert communities. We have done that over the past several years with an amazing partnership with a number of our sister government agencies, the Department of Health, Department of Agriculture, Department of Community Affairs, Department of Human Services, chief among them, and also with Mark Dingleson, the inaugural food security advocate in the Office of the Food Security Advocate. So have been really excited to build out this portfolio. And as we were originally focused on the structure of supporting the development of new supermarkets, really also wanted to build out a toolkit that could provide other resources, because just like there's not one cause of food insecurity or limited food access, there's not one solution. And that's part of what we're going to be getting into today. Next slide. So just as a snapshot, over the past several years, really a staggering amount of funds have been dedicated through funding from Governor Murphy, Speaker Coughlin, the legislature, to support EDA's work around food security and food access. So we're at right around $300 million in funding. The majority of that funding originally was through the Food Desert Relief Act, which provides tax credits to support the development of new supermarkets, but we also have the ability essentially to sell those tax credits and then use the proceeds from selling them to support new programs, including grant programs like FEED. But just wanted to give this snapshot, I won't go into detail, to show that it's really hard to do this without making food puns. We're trying to put our money where our mouth is. We're trying to come up with different elements and different strategies to support communities in combating food insecurity and alleviating food deserts. Next slide. So spoke briefly about this, and this will be included in again, this is all detailed. You don't have to be taking pictures of the screen. We will put all this up. You can go to njeda.gov/feednj for all of this information. But one of the priorities that the EDA embarked upon, working very closely, in particular with Department of Community Affairs and the Department of Agriculture, was to designate to create a methodology and designate New Jersey's food desert communities. That was something we were required to do under legislation. And we took an incredibly comprehensive approach, tried to infuse some much more grounded, locally driven perspectives into what constituted a food desert, and push beyond the boundaries of what is often done at the federal level in terms of food deserts, which often are do not consider things like public transportation. They may be more focused on an old, sort of an older model of, are you within X number of miles or half a mile of a supermarket? But, if you have to walk under a highway overpass, or the bus doesn't run there, or you can go to that supermarket, but the food is completely unaffordable to you, then you're still living in a food desert. And so we're incredibly proud of the methodology we built. What it resulted in was 50 communities across the state designated as food desert communities. You will probably hear us refer to them as FDCs. And there are more than 1.5 million New Jerseyans who live in these food desert communities across all 21 counties. Something that we want to emphasize as we go through this is all food desert communities are not created equal. And so they are essentially ranked in order of acuity, from the rank number 1 being the highest need, having the most attributes of a food desert, to number 50 being the lowest among the list. There are many, many communities that are not on the list at all. But essentially, the higher the number is, or the smaller the number is, I suppose, the closer to 1 the number is, the more acute the need is. And you'll see that in some of the methodology we've built. Next slide. So with that, I have a couple more slides. I'm going to turn it over to Rucha. But again, our goal here has been all along to develop a suite of programs and supports that could enable innovative, creative, community-driven approaches to alleviating food insecurity and improving food access. And so we've talked about a number of initiatives that we've embarked on, and we're very excited to be launching our $30 million Feed NJ program. Feed NJ stands for Food Equity and Economic Development. It is modeled on a program that we recently launched in Atlantic City, which I'll get to in a second. But as you'll see here, the program will be making grants between $50,000 and $500,000 to entities, both for-profits and nonprofit entities, that are focused on strengthening food access and food security in the most acute food desert communities throughout the state. And you'll see in these examples that we have here, just some of the kinds of ideas that could be contemplated with this funding. I say this as someone who, before joining EDA about 5 years ago, ran a direct services nonprofit. And I know that oftentimes government funding can be very prescriptive. Our goal here is to provide some broad parameters, but then really to have solutions and ideas brought from the communities. And we know that many food desert communities have different needs. So you'll just see some potential examples here of the kinds of projects and activities that we could envision Feed NJ supporting. Go to the next slide. And this is my last slide, and I'll turn it to Rucha. One of the elements of I think something that we are very proud of how we've designed the Feed NJ program is we've also had an incredibly valuable experience building a program that is essentially the pilot for what is now Feed, that had been an exclusive focus on Atlantic City. So about a year ago, Governor Murphy had really urged us to develop a program that could provide support in Atlantic City, which is unique for so many reasons, not least among them that there have been for now almost decades, very challenging kind of fits and starts of building a full service supermarket. We are continuing to try very strongly to make headway on that, but people in Atlantic City can't wait. They shouldn't have to wait. And so we were able to launch a program that had made more than $5 million available. It was similar, though not identical, to what we are launching here today, in that it's a competitive scored program. You propose your ideas and we evaluate them based on an established rubric. And we made 11 awards to a very diverse range of organizations and entities in Atlantic City. So you can see some of the examples here. Again, these are, supposed to be illustrative, but what we've started to see with that program and the initial results and the initial activities is just how comprehensive, but also creative some of the ideas have been. And so we're just very excited to take the learnings from that and to take our kind of broaden our aperture to a statewide approach. So that is what brings us here today to talk about Feed NJ. With that, I'm going to turn it to Rucha.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rucha Gadre, and I will be walking you through what are some of the expectations as a grant program for Feed NJ, and then also more comprehensive slides on the actual application of this program. But before we dig into the specifics of Feed NJ, you must have heard the common theme across all our programs, which is strengthening food security for the state of New Jersey. So I wanted to take this chance to kind of bring us all to focus on one definition for food security as it relates to New Jersey. And again, a huge shout out to Mark Dinglassen and his team at New Jersey Office of Food Security Advocate for coming up with this very comprehensive definition for food security. So food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food, which meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. So this will be the definition that we will be keeping in mind when we evaluate your applications. And I hope that this definition resonates with all of you for the work we'll be doing under Feed New Jersey. A quick overview of what the program is going to be, and we'll dig deeper into each component of this program. But as Tara mentioned, we will be leveraging $30 million in total funding to support Feed NJ. As mentioned earlier, this money comes through the sale of tax credits. So this isn't federal money, so it has less compliance requirements, but there still will be some that each applicant and then a grantee would have to abide by. Applicants can propose a project that is minimum of $50,000 up to $500,000 of in funding, which means that all of the project-related costs can be covered through Feed NJ. However, if you have supplemental funding that supports some of the outcomes for the project you're proposing, you can list them in the budget template that we'll be going through shortly. Again, the focus remains on strengthening food access and food security for our state, more specifically for residents who live in the primary focus FDCs, which are 14 for Feed NJ. And we'll go through the list of what those primary 14 focus FDCs are. You can propose a completely new initiative, or you can request funding for continuing the services that you already have, or it can be a combination of both, which is you have ongoing services, but you want to add another component which complements the work that you're doing for the residents of the selected food desert community. What can be covered under this grant are minor renovations, equipment, installation, salaries, rent, and operations. Please note that what we will not allow, or what's not an eligible cost under this project or this program, is land acquisition, property purchase, or ground up construction or major renovations. And major renovations could be that you're adding another floor to an existing building, or you're adding or growing the footprint of your existing property. If you are suggesting any renovations or equipment installation in your grant project, please note that prevailing wage would apply to all construction activities that are over $1,999. There is a section in the application which will go over the specific requirements and what those prevailing wage guidelines are that must be followed. This is a grant program, so it will be a disbursement program. The disbursement is now scheduled to be in 3 steps. At the time of grant execution, or after your grant is fully executed, which means you've signed the agreement and we've signed the agreement, we would disperse 30% of your grant award amount. And then you would receive up to 50% on a quarterly basis which means that 50% of your grant award amount will be paid as the quarters we move forward into. The last payment, which is 20%, will be held till we receive the final reports of your project, which would mean you have to meet all the compliance requirements. You must have submitted your reports, quarterly reports, mid-year program report, and the final report as per the schedule that will be provided. And upon satisfactory meeting those requirements and the goals of the project, the 20% of the award amount will be disbursed. Applicants can propose to complete their project either between 12 months or 24 months. We leave that up to you to decide the grant term or the time required for you to complete the approved work. There will be a 6-month extension provided, but that's at the discretion of NJEDA. So it's not guaranteed that you will get an extension, but if there are some circumstances that come up and you're not able to fully complete your work, at our discretion, we have the ability to provide a 6-month extension. For applicant eligibility, both for-profits and nonprofit entities are eligible to apply as long as they've been at least 2 years in existence at the time of application. So anyone applying for this grant program in 2025 must have been in existence 2 years prior to from the date of application. All applicants must be registered to do business in New Jersey and must be in good standing with Department of Labor, Department of Environmental Protection, and the Division of Taxation. If you are proposing any construction, installation, renovation to your facility, you must provide evidence of site control or a path to site control. And we would only accept 1 application per EIN. However, we encourage you to collaborate with multiple entities across your food desert community so that there's more services provided through Feed NJ program. And for those who are collaborating, we would need to see the evidence of collaboration in your application. So coming back to the geographic eligibility, when we say that the Feed NJ program is focused on 14 of New Jersey's top 15 FDCs, what we mean is that in our list of food desert communities, the top 15 are eligible minus Atlantic City, so it becomes top 14. These top 14 eligible FDCs are across 8 counties and 11 municipalities, and over 5,600 residents live in these communities. 500,000 residents live across these 14 eligible FDCs. The target resources into these most acute FDCs, Feed NJ applicant must pick one FDC among the 14, but you do have the ability to pick more than one eligible FDC, so more than one in the top 14. However, we want our resources to spread across the state of New Jersey. So your primary FDC could be one among the 14, and then you can choose to provide services to any other FDC on the list of the 50 food desert communities. And if you want more information on the map, you can go back to our website, which is www.njeda.gov/feednj, and there's an interactive map to access the 14 eligible FDCs as well as our 50 food desert communities. Here's a list of those primary focus FDCs, and you'll see Atlantic City is not included in this list because Atlantic City has its alone standing program, Atlantic City Food Security Grant Programs that we saw slide on previously in this presentation. For how do we define construction work under Feed New Jersey program? So Feed New Jersey grant can be used to only support certain types of construction work, and you can see the list here, such as minor renovations, repairs, equipment installation, painting, so on and so forth. Again, just to be very clear, no ground-up construction or major renovations will be supported through this program. If your construction work is over $1,999, we will require you to meet the prevailing wage requirements. And there's a whole detailed section on this as we move through the presentation. Contractor requirements. If you are planning on construction or renovation, please note that these requirements apply to any construction work undertaken as part of the proposed project, even if it's not funded by NJEDA. What that means is that if your overall project, if what you want to do requires some construction work, but you're not necessarily asking funding for that work through EDA, but the work will happen at the same time as your EDA funded work, we still will be requiring that applicant or that grantee to abide by the requirements of prevailing wage and affirmative action. As we move through the application process, you'll see what those requirements are and how we'll be collecting documents pertaining to those requirements. If your work is funded by NJEDA or construction work, then again, subcontractors must be registered through the Public Works Registered Contractors. We would require their SAMGov ID, and they are subject to department check. There's also an eligibility verification form for each contractor and any professional services that will be required to submit it to us at the time of application that meets your construction requirements. So what is the application process going to look like, right? We'll review sample applications. Please go through the checklist and please look at the FAQs that are available on our website. This will help you prepare for the actual application, give you a list of all the documents that you must have handy to submit when you are filling out the application, online application. The application window will be open for 6 weeks. And we cannot extend the application window. If you are late in submitting, it's a hard stop at the end of 6 weeks. There is no application fee. Usually some of the other programs at EDA charge an application fee. For Feed New Jersey, there will be no application fee. What we are looking at in the application would be narrative responses, required documents that support your proposed project, such as your work plan, your budget narrative, letter of support from the partners that you're working with or the stakeholders within that community, evidence of collaboration with if you have other partners working on the same project. We get all that information, and then the staff will review application and check for missing or incorrect documents. You will have some time provided to cure those missing or inaccurate documents. After the cure period ends, we cannot accept any supporting documents for your application. The ones that are deemed eligible because they missed certain documents or the ones missed certain documents will not move forward for scoring. to be considered for an award, a minimum of 70 points out of 100 points is required, in addition to a score of 8 out of 15 points on the budget and budget narrative. This isn't a first come, first serve program, so you don't have to submit your application on the very first day unless you're ready to do so. But we also recommend not to wait till the very last day, because once we hit that application close deadline, there is no going back and submitting an application. Funding will be allocated to the highest score applicant, and then we'll move forward in the decreasing order of the score. Going back to the application overview, what we will be looking for and what each applicant will be scored on are responses provided about their organization and their project, including but not limited to the organization's capacity and past and present experience in conducting the work that they have proposed. There is a section that's focused on description of the proposed project, including its expected impact on food access and food security for the selected FDC. And remember, this is going to be focused primarily on those 14 FDCs, but you can also add, should you choose another FDC out of the 50 FDCs, you can build your answer to reflect that as well. We will be looking at the project's proposed viability and long-term sustainability. How engaged are you with your community, and how have you built that engagement into your proposed project? And last but not least, the work plan, how detailed and clear it is, and the budget as it aligns with the work plan and the goals that you are proposing to achieve through this project. Please note that any work that's done prior to grant execution cannot be paid for through NJEDA's Feed New Jersey program. All expenses that incur after the grant is fully executed are eligible to be covered under this grant. A full sample application, so don't worry about taking screenshots of the slides that we see once we move into the application itself. We'll be providing a copy of the sample application as a PDF on our website, and also will be emailing it to all attendees registered for this webinar. Here is a list of all the required documents, but there's also going to be an application checklist available for you to use when you sit down and work on getting your application together. What we are requiring is that each applicant must submit organization's formation documents, their current tax clearance certificate, the work plan, budget, and letter of support. For the work plan and budget, we will link those templates on our product page. Also send you a copy of that so you have it, and it is also available and built into the actual application. If applicable, we will also require evidence of engagement with key stakeholders needed to execute specific components of your project. So if you're working with another organization, what is that organization's role? And also evidence that they have agreed to provide the support that is required to achieve the goals. Evidence of ongoing or previous project planning. So if you've done a feasibility study, you could use that as evidence of previous project planning and how that study would feed into the proposed project for under Feed New Jersey. Evidence of collaboration from each project collaborator. This is only required if you're working with multiple entities in achieving the goals. Evidence of site control or path to site control, such as deed or lease. Again, if your project involves any construction, renovation, equipment installation, you will be required to show that you own the space, you have a lease or sublease, or you have license from your landlord to conduct the work that you have proposed under Feed New Jersey. For your construction, if you're using a contractor, subcontractor, or professional services, there are required documents that you must submit at the time of application. It's a common requirement at EDA for all programs and all applicants to submit a religious affiliation form and a certificate of alternate name if that applies. Again, a complete checklist will be provided to all of you and will be made available on our program website. So please keep in mind to visit FeedNJ on NJEDA's main website. This is going to be a long application, so plan ahead. We will require all applicants who are selected to receive the grant to meet the closing requirements within 90 days, which means that if you have a lease that ends, at the 6 months from the time of application, we will require you to have on hand your renewed lease at the time of application should your project be selected to receive a grant. And if you can't provide that requirement, meet that requirement within 90 days, the grant agreement expires. So another example would be a tax clearance certificate. If you submit a tax clearance certificate, it needs to be valid for at least 180 days. If it isn't, then at time of closing, we'll ask for a new or updated tax clearance certificate and must be provided to us within 90 days. For projects involving construction, we need to see that you have site control for the duration of the grant term, which will be 2 years or 12 months, depending on what you've picked. A signed construction contract and proof of contractor's insurance. For applications that move towards grant, we will have certain meetings with you prior to closing, so you'll know the exact requirements that you must meet before closing or before grant execution. If your project requires outside funding, you can include that in the budget so that we know that your project can be fully completed if there is construction that we are paying for or portion of it that we are paying for. Here are the buckets in which the application will be scored: organization capacity, project impact, work plan, project viability and sustainability, community engagement, and strength of budget. Again, remember, 70 points out of 100 are required to be considered for a grant or recommending your application for a grant, but that 70 out of 100 must include at least an 8 out of 15 on your budget and budget narrative. So please think really well and clear when you are drafting your budget and budget narrative. So how the expenses that you want Feed NJ grant to pay for aligns with the goals that you want to achieve through the Feed New Jersey program. Each section will have several questions under it. So those questions, again, the section is scored, so it's not an option to not answer some of those questions. Be very thorough and think through how you can bring up your organizational capacity in conducting the work that you are proposing, and so on and so forth. We'll now go through the application walkthrough. These are screenshots of how the actual application will look. Again, please don't worry about taking pictures right now. The actual application in its PDF format will be made available on our website and also emailed to you as part of a wrap-up email after the webinar. There are some slides here which are considered as a common app. So those are same across all our programs. I will point out to the sections that you must complete because they are scored, and how going back to the criteria is how they are, what points they have, and what sections are important for you to lift up the work that you do for Feed New Jersey. This will be your welcome page. Please read through. This will highlight, your eligibility, what is the purpose of this program, what the grant amount would be between $50,000 and $500,000, so on and so forth. If you need language assistance, we do offer that through our language help@njeda.com email. Please feel free to email them should you need any language assistance. On this page, again, you pick your language. This is, again, a yes or no. If you selected no to English as your primary language, then you can identify which is your primary language, and the application assistance team can help you go through the application. This is the introductory page. Please note that this is also going to help us understand the eligibility of your application, because it allows us to know which primary focus FDC you are selecting. To be eligible for Feed New Jersey, you must select one of the 14 primary focus FDCs to concentrate your work on. You put in your organization name and then a high-level overview of your organization, the work it does, who your organization will be focusing on serving, and the location of your services as it relates to the selected FDC.
Rucha, I'm taking panelist privilege just to pause you for one thing. Amazing job so far. This is so much content. Can you clarify something for everyone? So for the proposed projects must primarily serve, they can check more than one of these, correct?
You have to check at least one, but if you choose to select all of Newark and Patterson, that's okay. But one is a minimum requirement to be eligible to move forward with
But
the
just
application.
to clarify, you don't have to select, if you select more than one, they don't have to be in the same city. You could theoretically pick Newark East and Patterson North. So just so people know that you have to pick at least one here, but if you elected to, you could pick more than one. Just want to be precise on that. Awesome. I will mute myself again. Keep going, please.
In addition to those 14, if you want to add any other food desert community, you can do so. But please note that your primary focus should be one or more out of those 14. So for example, if I go back to this slide and say I want to work with the city of Salem as my primary focus, I can do that. And on this list, I can pick any other if I want to serve any other food desert community. The next question requires you to identify how long it would take for you to complete your work. You can choose that you are requesting funds to complete the proposed work in 12 months or 24 months. Please note that we do have the ability to give a 6-month extension, provided you have made every effort to finish the work that you've proposed in your selected timeline. And there were pressing, there were reasons beyond your control because of which you could not finish the work in 12 or 24 months. And then you can give us an estimated total cost of how much your project will need, and then kind of give us include the complete project cost in your estimate, including costs that will only be funded through EDA. If you choose to include outside funding, you can do that as well. We need clear explanation in your project and in the budget for the amount that you've requested from EDA to fund your Feed New Jersey project. This is the scope of your work. What we want to understand in the first square here is make sure that you understand there is no land acquisition as an eligible cost. If you're deciding to purchase property through FeedNJ, it is not an eligible cost. So if you select any of these, there will be a alert message saying that these are ineligible costs. What is eligible, however, is installation of equipment, minor renovation. So you can pick those if it applies to your work. If you have no construction, no renovation, just say none of the above and you can move forward. This is going to be the person that we will be reaching out to should we have any questions regarding your application. So please make sure that you put in your email address the correct way and confirm your email, your name, so that we know who the primary point of contact for your application will be. There's more information that is specific to the primary point of contact. I don't want to read this slide. These are some of our common application questions. So you can see this when we send you the application PDF. Authorized representative is the person who, if you select no to the primary point of contact for being you're legally authorized to submit the application, then this is one that we would be reaching out to if you're not the primary person filling out, the primary contact person filling out the application. Here's the information of your chief executive officer. Oftentimes we've seen that the CEO has authorized a staff person to fill out the application, but at the end of the day, we do ask for you to fill out the information of the chief executive officer as well. If you want to provide us with your media contact, you can do that on this slide. And then provide information of the person who is responsible for your media outreach. Applicant organization. This is where you would put in your organization name. If your organization does business under a different name, you need to put that information in and provide us with documents stating which name is on all your legal documents, such as your tax credits, your lease. So we know which is the right name to move forward with your application. Then you select what type of an entity you are and the date that you were established. Please note that if you are very new, as in your business started last year, you're not eligible for the program because we require applicants to be in business or established at least 2 years prior to from the date of application period opens. We have more questions around application organization. Here you'll provide proof of who you are, whether you're a sole proprietor, a nonprofit, out-of-state entity. There are required documents that you would have to upload as per your your formation documents. You must provide us with your EIN number or tax ID number so that we can match that with your tax clearance certificate as a verification. There are more questions pertaining to application organization, such as, again, here you would upload your tax clearance certificate. If you are an applicant that is involved in religious activity, you would say yes or no. There's a religious affiliation form that must be filled out for all applicants for whom this might be applicable. And then we do ask for a question where if you've received previous NJED assistance, then give us a brief description of that. This is a question that we can't take out of our application. It's a part of our common application, so you can read it and answer it as it is applicable for your organization. The diversity, equity, and inclusion, there are several questions under this. You may choose to answer this as it applies to your organization. Should you choose not to, you can always select prefer not to answer and move through the application process. Again, it's the same around DEI. It's up to you to answer this or not answer this. Organization capacity. Going back to the sections that were scored, this is where the questions specific to Feed New Jersey are put into the application, and these questions are all scored questions. Organization capacity has the total of 20 points, so you will be required here to answer the questions asked under organization capacity. Please note that if you accidentally miss a question, or you can't miss a question because all of these questions have a little red asterisk across it, so which means that it is a mandatory question. If you feel that after submitting the application, if you feel that you didn't have enough time or you forgot to answer something, you can't go back and change your answer. So when you sit down to fill out the application, please make sure that you've thought through the question, you've drafted your answer. You can cut paste that from Word document into this or type it out. All our questions have a word limit, so please make sure that you notice the word limit and you are ready to put down the answer that you want. This is again a yes or no question under organization capacity. If your organization plans on selling food, yes or no, and then will your organization collaborate with any other organization to execute the project? It's a yes or no question. If you did say yes to the first question of selling food, then the follow-up question would be, do you accept SNAP or WIC as benefits that can go towards purchasing food? If you are collaborating with any other organization, then you will have to provide information on what is that experience like and who are you collaborating with. For all the collaborators that you've listed or you are going to list, you have to fill out their name, the type of organization, and their role. So we understand, who's responsible for what to achieve the impact that your project is stating to meet. You will have to provide a letter or a contract or a MOU with your collaborator, and then provide us again with their contact name and details, including their email. You can upload multiple collaborators in this. There is no limit. But if you do say yes to a collaborator, you would at least have to identify one and provide the required documents. Project impact, again, this is scored at 20 points out of 100 points. Please describe the services and activities that comprise your proposed project. So what is it that you plan on doing with the feed fund, Feed NJ fund, and so we would want to see that shared with us in this section. We are looking for specific locations of your proposed work. So if you pick one of the FDCs, a primary focus FDCs, where in that FDC will your services be provided from? How often will your services be made available? Is it once in a 1 day out of 1 week, or all 7 days? We want to make sure that you're spending most of your time and effort in that selected food desert community, or in those selected primary focus FDCs, to get a clear understanding of how much you're investing in that community in terms of impact. If you have any, please describe the existing food access and food security challenges in that selected FDC and how your project will address it. So this is more of understanding of, have you done your research of that in that selected FDC? So what challenges, ongoing challenges in that the residents in those communities are facing, or in that specific community are facing, and how does your project aim towards mitigating those challenging and addressing the challenges that the residents have highlighted? Again, it goes more into, identifying and addressing those challenges. Then we talk about how many people do you anticipate reaching through your work? You can say, you can quantify that based on your previous work experience, or you can propose a number that or an estimate that you want to meet through this project. And last but not least, we ask you to break it down by groups if possible, such as how many seniors, how many immigrant families, working adults, families with children does your project aim to serve under this work or through this work. We go on to further digging a little bit deeper into the project impact, which is, how does this project align with or advance your organization's primary mission or line of business? So how does it, help you achieve what your organization has said it wants to do as it relates to food access and food security for the residents of that food desert community? What are some of the metrics or measurable outcomes that you've used previously to track success, and that you will be using for Feed New Jersey moving forward? Based on the metrics and measurable outcomes that you've outlined in this section, we are asking you to provide any overarching goals. What does success look like for your organization should you receive Feed New Jersey funding? And that can be translated into short-term outcomes, midterm outcomes, and long-term goals, and can also be shared with us in form of numbers that you will achieve through your 12-month period or through 24-month period. The next section that we'll be focusing on is the work plan quality, and the template for the work plan will be made available to you through our product webpage, also included in here as a downloadable link that you can fill and then upload. This is what the template looks like. Basically, it kind of gives us a clearer picture of what you are going to do quarter by quarter, depending on how many months, the grant term you've selected, whether 12 or 24, to achieve the goals that you've laid out in your project impact. So it could be, you can break it down. If you're planning on serving 1,000 households, you can say in Q1, we've served 250, Q2, we've served additional 250, so on and so forth. But we want to see specific actions that you are taking to reach those households, to engage them, the services that they are seeking, and tracking, have you reached to your ultimate goal of 1,000 households towards the end of your grant term. The next section that is scored is the project viability and sustainability. In this, we want to understand your organization's financial and staff capacity as it relates to the work that you've proposed under Feed New Jersey. Has any ongoing or previous planning been done for this project? So as I mentioned earlier, if you've had a feasibility study done for a certain portion of the work that you're proposing under Feed New Jersey, we want to learn about that. We want to see how that initial investment or initial work that you've done can become more, can be implemented through the Feed New Jersey grant. And if you have any of those planning documents, please upload them for us to review when we score your application. If you have engaged any stakeholders that are required for specific components of your plan, we want to make sure that who they are, what kind of engagement was done, did you need specific permits from any of the authorities to get that work done. So if you require any permits, if you have construction or renovation, we want to see that you've already secured that to move into Feed New Jersey program. And then again, with most of the work that we do, we anticipate certain challenges. So we want to make sure that you've thought about those potential obstacles or risks to your project and what steps or contingencies you've thought of to make sure that you can address those at the right time to move forward successfully in achieving your goals. It again continues into the second section of project and viability and sustainability is, do you anticipate continuing the project beyond our grant funding? If this is a yes, we would want to know how you're moving forward, what your long-term goals are. If you need to secure additional funding to keep the momentum going on, what have you thought in terms of acquiring that funding, so on and so forth. If you say no, you won't be required to answer any of those questions. The next section is on community engagement. We do believe that, when you build in community engagement in any work that you are proposing or you are currently providing to the residents, there's a lot more real-time feedback and real-time ability to change your course correct your work so that it meets the existing challenges, not something that may have happened 2-3 years ago, but it allows you to keep your work more relevant to the existing needs of the community. So we are asking you questions on your efforts around community engagement. If you answer yes to this question, we want to understand briefly how you've engaged with the community before and how do you plan on staying engaged with the community throughout the duration of the program. If you haven't worked in a community before, selected food desert community before, we want to know just overall what has your organization's experience been in serving residents of that selected FDC or similar FDCs. We want you to provide examples on how your organization has sought and responded back to community feedback. It could be simply as meetings with your community members through surveys or through your social media engagement platforms. Now, we also want to know, we also want you to list and describe any outreach engagement activities that your organization does on a regular basis to keep your residents abreast on the services that you have, any changes that may be implemented because of the policies in place, and how you are making sure that the changes or even the advancements in the services that you're providing are communicated with your community. We do require you to upload a letter of support from a entity from a selected food desert community, and this is a requirement, so you can't skip this. We want this letter of support to come from a stakeholder from within that community. This is the section where initially I had mentioned that you must score a 8 out of 15 and then 70 out of 100 to be eligible for us to recommend you for a grant. You will get a chance to download the budget template and the narrative, which is only one document this time, and then upload it. The budget template is already pre-formulated, so you don't have to worry about any formulas. You will only be able to put in numbers, not edit any other information that's built in on the back end of this section. This will be your summary page, which will auto-populate based on what you've put in the other tabs that are built into the budget template. So for example, this is the section where we would want to capture any personnel expenses that you plan on proposing under Feed New Jersey. The yellow, light blue, and green section, you can just fill that information in. We want you to share with us, the person who will be working on this. So the title of the person, how is that person's role related to Feed New Jersey? What are the tasks that they will be responsible for in achieving the goals that you've highlighted or listed in your work plan, as it aligns with the overall impact that you want to achieve? We do require a fringe rate breakdown, so you can include that in an email to us separately or as an attachment with this. So we understand what is that specific breakdown, but you can include the percentage in this worksheet. This is both, again, for personnel who are hourly employees, but also for salaried employees. So you don't have two different tabs for personnel who are on your hourly rate versus the ones that are on a salary. This next section captures both OTPS as well as construction expenses if they are applicable. Again, just put each line item that you want us to cover under Feed New Jersey. If you want to break down the cost of a specific line item between Feed New Jersey grant and any outside funding, you can do that as well. Please note that we are only responsible for, should your grant move forward, cover the expenses that are listed under amount to be funded by Feed New Jersey grant. Be as specific as you can under the cost breakdown and justification, so we know that that specific cost actually does apply to achieving your goals that you've proposed under Feed New Jersey. For construction expenses, please make sure that you don't put one blanket construction expense as renovation and then put a significant amount under that. So for example, if you're renovating your kitchen in a soup kitchen, we want to know the cost associated with each item that you will be renovating under Feed New Jersey. So if you're doing tiles, if you're improving the lighting, if you're putting in a new faucet, new equipment such as a freezer, we want to know the specifics of each item that you are planning on renovating. Lastly, this is the sheet where we are asking you, should you decide to include any outside funding in your budget to cover any of the costs, you can list them here. Again, it ties back. You don't have to do any math here. The formulas are all built in. Everything will be reflected on the budget summary for us to know what we are paying for through Feed New Jersey. If your project has any construction, you will be responsible for filling out the next 4 slides or the questions that are captured on the next 4 slides. If you own the site, we want to make sure that you upload the deed of your site so we know that you can do construction. You don't require anyone's permission to do any renovation or construction there. If you're leasing or subleasing or you have license from your landlord, please make sure that you upload that for us to know that you are permitted to do the work that you have listed under construction at the given site. There will also be a landlord certification form that you can use to provide us with that license.
Rich, I'm just going to pause you for a second. So just a time check, we're at 2:57. We can go over for a few minutes. And as I said at the beginning, this will be recorded. So if you have to drop right at 2, don't worry. We are saving this. You're not missing it. And it'll be uploaded to our site. So we have a few more slides to get through. So just let folks know that if you can stay on for a few more minutes, if not, you can watch the recording online. Thanks.
As I mentioned again, this only applies if you have construction. If you pick a contractor, professional service, or subcontractor, there'll be specific questions that you will have to provide information for that professional service or contractor type. Here, if it's this slide is about a contractor, each contractor will provide us with a contractor code. They must be registered under Public Works Certification. They must have a New Jersey business registration number. And then there's a contractor eligibility verification form that you can download, fill in the questions asked, and upload that for us to review. Same applies for professional services. There's forms that you can download, fill in their information, upload for us to review and approve them if we move forward in receiving a grant. As I mentioned earlier, if your project has construction that's over $1,999, prevailing wage and affirmative action requirements are applicable. You can't escape that. This is a screenshot of what you're acknowledging for should you have any installation or equipment cost that exceeds that minimum amount. In here, this is application representation. So we want to make sure that the individual filling out this application is employed by the entity, your organization. It's a yes or no question. And then depending on what the answer is, you'll be required to fill out relevant questions. If you're an entity who type of your application, so depending on who you are, please list from the drop down, please select your role. So it allows us to then further know who you are and how you're related to the applicant organization. This is basically one of our common app requirements. You can download the legal questionnaire, certificate of non-involvement with Russia, Belarus, and the application certification and upload that as a requirement of the application process. These are screenshots of what is included in the legal questionnaire. So I'll just zoom through these. You can find them on our website. This is the form for the Russia, Belarus certification. And last but not least, the certification of the applicant, that you've given us the right information, so on and so forth, which can be downloaded and then uploaded as part of your application wrap-up. This is just a signature saying that you agree to the rules and regulations of EDA as it relates to this program, and that information you've provided is not false. You sign and you submit, and this will be dated so we know that what time it comes in, so we know you're within the application window. Once you submit, so this is the application submission. If there's anything else that you've missed and was not asked by us in the sections that are scored, this is your chance to upload those supporting documents, add your name and your title, and then this is the final submission page for this lengthy application. A few application tips from us. Please note that there are character limits, so I would recommend you typing your answers out first and then make sure that they meet our character limits before you put them in our application. Please highlight your organization's strength, the impact that your organization is going to achieve through this program, so it stands out and makes your application really strong. What we are looking at is also sustainability. We want this work to go beyond our funding. So what are you thinking in terms of fundraising and how you'll sustain your project once our funding ends? There's a reason we've asked these questions. It will help you score more if you think through and give us answers that are relevant to what we want to achieve through this program and what your organization wants to achieve through this program. For the budget and budget narrative, it is one of the sections that you need to score a minimum of 8 out of 15. So please be very thorough and think through how the funding request helps you achieve the impact that you want to. Provide us as much information as you can for those activities that you've listed and how the cost allows you to achieve the goals. Be aware of the timelines. The application window will close in 6 weeks once it opens, but it will take us time to review your application, score the application. So don't hold your proposal start date. Let's assume that you say that August 1st is when we'll begin the work. It may not be August 1st. You may have to shift your dates based on when we close with your grant application. Please use all the resources that we've provided you on our website, whether it's the webinar recording, whether it's the supplemental attachments available. They will help you think through the application and submit a really strong application. All documents are required. If you miss uploading certain things and we catch that during the cure period, we will ask you for those, but they are only attachments. We will not be able to give you a chance to revise a question's answer that you have provided. So please think through every aspect of this application. It is a lengthy application. It will take anywhere between 2 to 5 hours to sit down and complete this application once you've made sure that all the attachments are saved in a folder somewhere in your laptop that you can drag and drop those attachments. You can collaborate on the project, but unfortunately you can't collaborate on submitting this application, which means that only one person can work on the application at any given time. 2 people cannot work on this application. So please make sure that if you are working with someone else, that other person has provided you every information that is necessary for your application before submission. And last but not least, please check your work. Once you submit an application, unless an attachment is wrongfully uploaded, you do not have a chance to course correct your answers to any given sections that are scored in our application. Here are some of the resources that are right now available for you to go on our product page and look at. The best way to reach us is using the food security grants at njeda.gov email. There's no other email if you send email to this address, one of us will certainly get back to you and answer any questions that you may have around Feed New Jersey. And again, these slides will be posted along with the application and any other supporting documents that are required for this grant. I don't think we have time for any FAQs. We are 5 minutes over, but if you've added your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom, we'll be certainly looking at those. If they're not included in our FAQs already, we'll build them in our FAQs and send a response to the group. With that, thank you so much. And that's it for today.
Thank you so much, everyone.